The first light of dawn spilled across Makonda village, soft but unyielding. Dust rose from the red dirt paths, swirling around the weathered huts that leaned against the wind like they, too, were tired of the world. In one such hut, Thabo, a 25-year-old young man, sat on a worn wooden stool. His shoulders slumped, his head hung low, and his hands shook as if the weight of the world rested upon them. Hunger gnawed at his stomach, but it was nothing compared to the hunger in his heart, the hunger for purpose, for dignity, for a life he could call his own. At 25 had dreamed of more than this. He had dreamed of a life where he could stand tall, with Noja by his side, their future built hand in hand. But letters went unanswered, applications returned with polite refusals. And each day felt like he was sinking deeper into a pit from which he could not escape. The villagers watched him with sharp, judging eyes. Every stumble, every glance, every pause in his footsteps seemed a spectacle. Some whispered warnings, others mockery. "Why does that girl even stay with him?" murmured an old woman carrying firewood past his hut. "Love won't fill their stomachs," muttered a man leaning on a crooked fence, eyes narrowed. "They'll both regret this," said another, shaking his head as he passed. Thabo heard every word. Each whisper cut like a knife, leaving marks deeper than any wound. Yet, in the midst of this suffocating pressure, there was Noja. She was 25 as well, radiant in a quiet, unshakable way. Her dark eyes were steady, filled with warmth and determination. She saw him not as a boy without prospects, but as a man capable of greatness, a man whose heart was vast, even if his pockets were empty. Every morning, Noja found small ways to support him. Sometimes it was a loaf of bread, carefully placed outside his door so he would find it when he returned from long walks through the dusty village paths. Sometimes it was porridge, sometimes a small bundle of herbs from her mother's garden. Each time, her hands trembled, not from the weight of the bundle, but from the love and fear packed within her chest. She worried for him, for herself, for what the future might hold. Noja's mother, a stern woman whose love was strict and controlling, despised Thabo with every fiber of her being. "You shouldn't be wasting your life on him, Noja," she shouted one evening, slamming her hand on the old wooden table. "He will drag you down. At 25, you should thinking of future, not this boohoo thing, nothing." Noja's chest heaved, but she held her head high. "Mother, I know his heart," she whispered. "He loves me, and I love him." "That is enough for now," her mother's eyes flared. "Love will not feed you. Love will not keep a roof over your head. Love will not protect you. I will not allow you to ruin yourself for him." Noja turned away, swallowing hard to keep the tears from falling. The fear pressed in on her, but she refused to give in. She believed in Thabo. She knew he was more than the whispers, the poverty, the despair. Meanwhile, Thabo wandered the village with a heavy heart. At 25, he felt the weight of failure pressing down on him like a stone in his chest. Every day without work, every failed attempt, every letter returned with polite refusal, felt like a confirmation of his worst fear, that he would never rise. He spent hours staring at the horizon, imagining a life beyond the village. He dreamed of a small home with Noja, of waking to her smile, of holding a child they would raise together. And yet, reality always returned to drag him down. The village's whispers, the judgment of friends, the disapproval of her mother, it was relentless. At night, he would find himself sitting under the baobab tree, staring at the stars, wondering if he was enough. If he could ever be enough for Noja. "I don't know if I can do this," he whispered one night, voice shaking. "I feel like I'm drowning, like I'm losing everything." Noja sat beside him, her hand warm on his shoulder. "Thabo, listen to me," she said softly but firmly. "You are stronger than you know. This village cannot take that away from you. I believe in you, always. Even when you doubt yourself, I will stand here, believing." Her words wrapped around him like a lifeline, reminding him of the promise he had made, to one day return worthy of her love, worthy of their dream. Life in the village was never quiet. Neighbors whispered about them, reporting back to Noja's mother, watching every interaction. Some friends supported her, but others warned her against it. "You are risking everything," whispered a friend one evening. "Do you see how your mother looks? Do you see what the village says? He is a boy with nothing." Noja nodded, her heart heavy but unyielding. "I know. But I cannot stop loving him." "He is worth it," she said. Each day, she worried for him, for their future, for the harshness of a world that did not understand their love. Yet, she refused to relent, refusing to let fear dictate her heart. One afternoon, a letter arrived for Thabo. He held it in his hands with trembling fingers. It was a response to an application he had sent long ago, an opportunity in the city. A way out of the village and into the life he had dreamed of. The first person he called was Noja. I got it," he whispered, voice breaking. "They want me. They want me there." Noja's scream of joy echoed down the dusty path, tears spilling over her cheeks. "Thabo, I knew it. I always knew you could do this." And yet, her heart trembled with fear. The city was vast, full of people she did not know. Beautiful women, endless streets, opportunities she could not imagine. Would Thabo's heart remain hers? "I'll come back for you, Noja," Thabo promised, reading the fear in her eyes. "You are the one. I will always return to you." Days later, Thabo packed the few belongings he could carry. The villagers whispered congratulations and gave small smiles. Noja's mother stayed behind, arms crossed, glaring. Noja stood quietly, clutching a bundle of food she had prepared, a small loaf of bread, some herbs, a pot of porridge, her hands shaking, but her heart steady. "Stay strong," she whispered, pressing the bundle into his hands. "Remember. Always remember our dream." He held her close, their tears mingling. "I will return," he whispered. "I swear." As he left, the village seemed smaller, quieter. The red dust swirled behind him like a veil mourning his departure. Noja watched, heart aching, but she believed. Thabo arrived in the city, wide-eyed and nervous. His first job was modest, a small office, a tiny room to stay, but each day brought opportunity. Slowly, confidently, he built connections, gained skills, and found friends. Each small success was a reminder of the promise he had made to Noja. But the city was tempting. Women dressed in the brightest clothes, bustling offices, endless streets and lights, and Thabo felt a pull he could not fully ignore. He thought of Noja constantly, but the world outside whispered promises of excitement and wealth. Back in Makonda, Noja waited. Days stretched into weeks, weeks into months. She worked quietly to support her family, saved what little she could, and carried hope as a lantern in her chest. Every evening, she walked to the village gate, imagining him returning to her. The villagers whispered, friends warned her. Her mother scolded her endlessly, yet Noja's hope never wavered. She remembered his promises, the warmth in his eyes, the love they had shared. Every small gesture, every memory, became a thread tying her heart to his. Even as silence stretched, even as doubt gnawed at her, she clung to that hope. She would wait. She would believe. She would survive, for love, for promise, for Thabo. The city was a thunder of noise and light, a place where the air smelled of exhaust, sweat, and opportunity all at once. Thabo, still 25, stepped into its chaos with a mixture of fear and excitement pressing at his chest. The streets were crowded. Women in bright dresses passed by. Laughter echoed from cafes, and the rhythm of life was faster than anything he had ever known in Makonda. But the city had its temptations. Colleagues were friendly, some flirtatious. The nightlife called with promises of excitement, laughter, and escape. Each day, the weight of responsibility pressed harder on Thabo's shoulders. The promise to Noja, the dream of a life together, and yet, in fleeting moments, the city's thrill dulled the ache of longing. Back in Makonda, Noja continued to wait. At 25, she was no longer just a girl with hope in her heart. She had become a young woman of quiet strength. She worked with her family, saved small amounts, and spent nights staring at the horizon, imagining Thabo returning. Each evening, she walked to the village gate, lingering there as though the rust-colored road itself might deliver him back to her. The wind tugged at her clothes. The distant laughter of villagers felt sharper. And every footstep approaching the village filled her chest with hope, only to sink again when it wasn't him. Her mother's scolding continued. "You waste your youth on a boy who cannot even call you," she would yell. "Do you want to end up alone, Noja?" But Noja's heart did not waver. Each scolding, each whisper of the village, each doubt planted in her mind, she brushed them aside. Thabo's promise, the warmth in his eyes, the nights beneath the baobab tree, those memories were stronger than fear. Thabo tried to call her often, but the city life, the work, the new friends, the fast-paced rhythm, distracted him. Some calls went unanswered, some letters were late. Every missed communication was a knife in Noja's heart. She would clutch the small bundle of letters she had saved, rereading his words over and over, imagining him speaking each one aloud. "I cannot give up on him," she whispered to herself on a particularly lonely night, tears sliding down her cheeks as she pressed her hand to the bundle. No matter what, he promised. He promised. The villagers continued to watch, some with pity, some with judgment. Some of her friends whispered, "Does he even think of you anymore?" But Noja ignored them. She held on to the small sparks of hope, letting them grow into a steady flame. In the city, Thabo's life began to change. Promotions came, friendships deepened, and slowly, the dreams of wealth and comfort began to eclipse the promise he had made. He bought a small apartment, then a car. He learned the ways of the city, how to navigate opportunity and social circles. He became confident, admired, even envied. And yet, in the corners of his mind, Noja's face lingered. But it became easier to ignore, easier to push aside. New women laughed with him, new opportunities tempted him. The promises he had whispered under the baobab tree faded like shadows at noon. Noja, however, refused to let go. Despite the hunger, despite the loneliness, despite the whispers of neighbors and the constant anger of her mother, she pressed forward. She worked hard, saved diligently, and even enrolled in evening classes. Determined to better herself and build a life worthy of the man she loved. Every evening, she visited the village gate, imagining the sound of his footsteps, the shape of his shadow against the red dust. Every night, she prayed, hoping that somehow he had not forgotten, hoping that love would survive even the distance, even betrayal. Months later, Noja could no longer bear the silence. With courage that burned like fire in her chest, she found the address where Thabo now lived in the city. Her hands shook as she approached the small apartment building, the air thick with nerves and fear. When Thabo opened the door, his expression froze. "Noja," he said, uncertain, almost afraid. But then something in his demeanor shifted. Instead of joy, there was hesitation, a coldness she had never seen before. I don't know what you want here," he said finally, stepping aside. I can't." Noja's tears fell freely. "Thabo, I came for us for what we promised, for our child." He recoiled slightly, the city's distractions and temptations stronger than the bond they had once shared. The words died between them, heavy and sharp, as he closed the door, leaving her standing in the corridor, the echo of rejection ringing louder than any city noise. But Noja did not collapse. Her heart broke, yes, but she refused to surrender. She returned to her village, to her cities, to her family, and to the small life she offered. She raised her child, worked tirelessly, and slowly, imperceptibly, she began to transform. The girl who once waited at the village gate was now a woman of strength, beauty, and resilience. She had endured heartbreak, neglect, and loneliness, and emerged from it not broken, but forged. Eventually, Thabo, seeing her rise, her strength, her unyielding spirit, realized too late what he had almost lost. But Noja, now confident and independent, had moved beyond the fear and heartbreak that had once threatened to consume her. She would not let him disrupt the life she had built, though he tried to reconnect, to reclaim the bond they once shared. Noja held firm. She loved the child, yes, but she would not allow the past to dictate the future. She had survived, and now she thrived. Noja eventually met someone new, someone steady and caring, who shared her values and dreams. She married, continued her life in the city, and built a home filled with love, laughter, and hope. Thabo, meanwhile, could only watch, realizing that love lost could not always be reclaimed, and that promises forgotten sometimes return too late. Yet the story was not all sorrow, for Noja, the girl who had waited, persevered, and grown stronger. It ended with a heart full of love, a family built on her own terms, and the knowledge that she had survived the deepest heartbreak and emerged victorious.